The instant my daughter pressed my hand beneath the table, I recognized it. 3 quick pulses. Intentional. Measured. It was the exact code we'd established when she was 8 years old. Back then, it was her way of telling me she needed an escape from a boring conversation without being rude. She's 29 now. We were sitting at my kitchen table with her boyfriend of 5 months, Trevor Sinclair. Trevor was busy explaining a commercial development project he was securing in Pickering. I smiled at him across the table and refilled his wine glass. But internally, every instinct I possessed was screaming. My name is Robert Hensley. I'm 61 years old. I spent 24 years with the RCMP's Integrated Market Enforcement Team, specializing in securities fraud, followed by a decade consulting for financial regulators. I've spent my life analyzing the pitch. I've sat opposite the most persuasive, likable, and predatory individuals you can imagine. And I was looking at one right now. I just didn't know the scale of it yet. Before we go further into the investigation, if you find stories like this valuable, or if you want to learn how to protect your family from the same predators Robert spent his life hunting, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Sharing these stories is the best way to keep your loved ones informed. Now, back to the table. My wife, Margaret, came in from the kitchen with dessert, cheerful as ever. She asked Trevor about his drive up from Mississauga. My daughter, Jessica, reached over and squeezed Trevor's shoulder. To anyone else, she looked perfectly content. She'd always had excellent composure. She inherited that from me. But she had just pulsed my hand 3 times. We hadn't used that signal in over 12 years. Trevor called himself a private capital strategist, not a financial planner, not an investment consultant. He said it with the practiced rhythm of someone who had rehearsed the title in a mirror. He claimed to work with a selective group of affluent clients, moving their money into alternative vehicles, syndicated mortgages, farmland trusts, renewable energy. There's an entire ecosystem of profits, he said, his voice kind, not condescending, that ordinary people never even discover. I nodded. I asked him about the regulatory oversight for these vehicles. He gave me a genuine, understanding smile. That's actually the benefit, Robert, he said. Reduced compliance complexity means more efficient capital deployment. That's where the real profits are born. Reduced compliance complexity, I echoed. Margaret caught my eye. She knows my investigator face. She quickly pivoted, asking Trevor if he'd like to see the greenhouse before the sun went down. The moment the patio door shut, Jessica leaned forward. She looked at me the way she did when she was a teenager with a secret. I know what you're thinking, she said. Tell me what I'm thinking. You think he's a fraud? I think I'd like to hear your version first, I said. How long has this been going on? She touched the back of her neck. She looked exhausted. He moved in 2 months ago, she whispered. He said his roommate situation fell through. I wanted it to work, so I didn't question it. But then he started talking about my portfolio. He said I was wasting my potential in index funds. He showed me documents for something called the Harbourfront Strategic Investment Trust. It looked real, Dad. Performance graphs, going back 9 years, a registered office in Calgary. Jessica, I said, keeping my voice neutral, how much is in your portfolio? She met my eyes. $295,000. I let that number hang in the air. Does he know what I did for a living? I told him you were retired, RCMP. He didn't even blink. He said it was remarkably impressive and then moved on. That told me everything. He was either incredibly confident or incredibly careless. In my world, those are usually the same person at different stages of a collapse. Has he asked for the money? He sent a subscription application 2 weeks ago. He says the enrollment window closes at the end of the month. Manufactured scarcity. Rule number 1 in the Fraudsters Handbook. Send me that document, I said. Tonight. The file Jessica sent was 19 pages long, professionally designed, watermarked letterhead, complex legal jargon, I spent 3 hours deconstructing it. The performance charts? No independent auditor. The asset-backed security section? It never actually listed what the assets were. The Calgary address? A virtual office that costs $50 a month for mail forwarding. I called 2 old colleagues the next morning. Valerie Chen, a heavy hitter in white-collar crime, and Kenneth Bartlett, a forensic accountant who could find a missing penny in a haystack. Kenneth called me back first. "Robert," he said, "this document is hollow. There's no register of collateral. If this trust defaults, the investors have zero recourse. It's a ghost ship." Valerie called at 10:20. Her voice was flat. "He's a pro, Robert. Trevor Sinclair, 36. He was fired from a firm in Edmonton 4 years ago. He took $95,000 from a 63-year-old divorcee. The file was sealed because the victim was too humiliated to testify. He's been practicing." "Is the trust registered?" I asked. "Nowhere. In any province. Robert, how close is he to her money?" "The deadline is this week. $295,000. "We need him on tape," Valerie said. "If he asks for the transfer, we have him." I drove to Jessica's condo that afternoon. I told her everything: the Edmonton victim, the fake office, the ghost assets. She sat perfectly still. "He told me he loved me," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was quiet. The sound of someone realizing the person they shared a bed with was a fabrication. "I know," I said. She looked up. "What do I do?" "You meet him. You act like you're ready to sign. You keep your phone in your pocket, recording. Let him speak. Don't rush him. Let the silences hang. He'll fill them with lies. Get him to name the amount. Get him to give you the transfer instructions." "I'm furious, Dad," she said, "but I can do this." The meeting happened Saturday afternoon at a quiet bistro in Port Credit. I sat in my car 2 blocks away, watching the GPS on her phone, my heart hammering against my ribs in a way it never did back when I was on the job. When she finally came out 90 minutes later, she didn't call. She drove straight to my house, walked into the kitchen, and placed her phone on the table. "Listen," she said. Her voice was trembling. I pressed play. The audio was muffled, at first the clinking of silverware, the low hum of a cappuccino machine, and then Trevor's voice came through. It was warm, intimate, and utterly lethal. "I know it's a big step, Jess," we heard him say on the tape, "but opportunities like the Harbourfront Trust don't stay open. I've managed to secure you a spot in the preferred tier 24% returns, starting the moment the wire clears." Then I heard Jessica's voice. She was brilliant. She sounded small, hesitant, the perfect mark. It's everything I have, Trevor. $295,000. Are you sure it's safe?" "I'm putting my own future right alongside yours," Trevor replied. I could hear the sincerity in his lie. It was chilling. "Look, I wrote down the wiring instructions for the BC Credit Union. If you initiate the transfer Monday morning, we can have the paperwork finalized by lunch. We're building our life together, Jess. Trust me." There it was, the smoking gun. He had named the amount, promised a fraudulent return, and provided the account for the theft. He had closed the trap, not realizing he was the one walking into one. I turned off the recording and looked at my daughter. She was pale, but she was standing tall. "We have him," I said. I called Valerie Chen at the Securities Commission immediately. "We have it all," I told her. "The pitch, the amount, and the bank coordinates. Move now." The arrest didn't happen in a dark alley. It happened on Monday morning, at Jessica's condo, right as Trevor was checking his watch, likely waiting for a notification that the $295,000 had hit his account. Instead of a wire confirmation, he got a knock on the door. Jessica stood in the hallway in her house slippers, watching through a blur of emotions as the RCMP led him out in handcuffs. He didn't look like a private capital strategist anymore. He looked like what he was, a predator who had finally been outmaneuvered by the very person he thought he had tamed. The investigation revealed 11 other victims. Total losses, $1.3 million. Jessica was the only one who didn't lose a cent. 3 weeks later, she came over for Sunday dinner. Margaret made lasagna. We sat at the same table where Trevor had sat. Jessica was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. "I keep wondering how I didn't see it sooner," she said, staring into her tea. "You did see it," I reminded her. "That's why you gave me the signal." "I mean, before that, why did I let him in?" "Jessica," I said, "he was a professional. He didn't look for a foolish person. He looked for a trusting person. He invested months into grooming you. That's not a lack of intelligence on your part, it's a high-level predatory skill on his." I leaned forward. Most people feel that wrongness is in their gut, and they talk themselves out of it. They're embarrassed. They don't want to be rude. So they wait. And while they wait, the money disappears, and the person vanishes. You didn't wait. She smiled, just a little. As an investigator, I can tell you this. Fraud succeeds because it mimics love. It mimics opportunity. It mimics belonging. If an investment sounds too good to be true, it is. If there's a deadline on a private deal, walk away. If they resist independent legal review, run. But most importantly, if your instinct is telling you something is wrong, listen to it. Jessica used a hand signal we made up for an 8-year-old. She used it because, deep down, she knew she needed a second pair of eyes. That instinct saved her life savings. If your gut is telling you something, it isn't nothing. It never is.